Oh my goodness, I'll tell you something. This quarterback situation for the Indianapolis Colts is a conversation that can literally be dissected from so many different angles if you're committed to peeling back the layers of that onion. Like, there's a bunch of different approaches you can take. And from what I've seen in the comment section, not just in my own videos, but at the same time across the internet, I understand that there's a section of the Colts fan base that is a little tired of hearing about the quarterback situation. Like, we get it. Daniel Jones was brought in to compete with Anthony Richardson, and ultimately, those two guys are going to duke it out for supremacy in this quarterback room, and one of them is going to start. We're going to see how it goes. We get it. Talk about something else. Well, okay, but at the same time, it's March 16th. The season doesn't start until September. What exactly is it that you would want to talk about if not for the quarterback battle? The draft? The draft isn't until the end of April, okay? The Colts signed Daniel Jones less than a week ago, okay? The reality of the situation for the Indianapolis Colts is that the biggest story surrounding this team is this quarterback battle, not just now, but moving forward. In fact, it's likely, I'm going to take it one step further, that this story of Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones competing to be the starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts is going to be one of the biggest stories in all of the NFL going into the season. So if you're going to sit here and talk about the Colts, you're kind of doing a disservice to the discussion about the team if you're not diving really deep into kind of all the intricacies of what's going on here. In fact, that's really the only thing we could talk about at this point. I get we brought in the free agents and there's a number of things, but at the same time, if we're going to talk about the team consistently, I mean, the quarterback battle is a big part of it. So if you're already tired of hearing about the quarterback situation in Indy and you're a fan of the team, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're going to be in for a very, very long 2025. And kind of just a quick side note that is relevant, but not directly related to the quarterback situation, but I'll bring it back around. As fans, let's not forget the feelings we have about this team right now. Like, let's not forget about how highly we think of what the Colts and Chris Ballard have done up to this point in the offseason. Okay? Let's not forget the conversations we're having about this team and the direction and the roster. Okay? Why is it that I bring that up? Because I know what you might be thinking. How in the world does what you're saying right now tie back into the quarterback situation? Allow me to quickly explain. It speaks to an overarching point about how important this quarterback battle is. I mean, not for anything. Just look at the damn roster that the Colts have right now. We know what the offensive line brings to the table, even in the absence of Will Fries, okay? The wide receivers, you got Michael Pittman Jr., you got Josh Downs, you got Alec Pierce, you got Jonathan Taylor at running back, you have all the guys in the secondary that were just brought in, you have the talent on the defensive line, okay? Think about Shane Steichen in his first 2 years in Indianapolis, 9-8 in his first season with Gardner Minshew, who is nobody's starting quarterback. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I have nothing but appreciation for what Gardner Minshew brought to the Indianapolis Colts, but at the same time, you do have to be objective and say, that guy is nobody's franchise quarterback. He can play, but at the same time, you're greatly limited as an offense. When you have Minshew there, they went 9-8 with him. And then Steichen's second year, sure, there was turbulence and drama and things in the media going on, but at the same time, a quote-unquote terrible season when you zoom out just a little bit, they went 8-9, okay? Now, I'm not making the case that 9-8 and 8-9 are something to be satisfied with as a fan base. What I'm making the case to is that this roster is already significantly better than both of the rosters we had going into those seasons. So you have the same head coach, a better roster. Okay. The truth of the matter is that if the Colts can get good quarterback play, there's a very, very good chance, albeit we're very early into the offseason, a very, very good chance that they go into next season and win their very first AFC South title with Chris Ballard as the general manager of the team. With the Jaguars and the Titans seemingly a couple years away, the Texans being a team that the Colts have competed very, very well with, despite the fact that maybe they don't look as good on paper. This offseason, in theory, we've outpaced the improvements of every other team in the AFC South, which is exactly what you want to see when you're trying to take the next step as a team. So if things don't work out for the Indianapolis Colts, it's most likely because of one of two things. Now, sure, there's a couple of other variables that you might be able to come up with, but what I'm about to say probably covers 80, 90, even 95% of the possibilities for the Indianapolis Colts. One, you have catastrophic injuries across the board for this team, okay? Or two, and really the more likely of these two things, neither quarterback was able to get it done. So knowing that that is true, and you know that's true, I know that's true. Knowing that that's true, when next season ends, let's be clear as to where the finger should be pointed. It all comes down to the quarterback position for the Indianapolis Colts. Chris Ballard is doing his part and then some, again, early in the offseason. But this is the part of the offseason that as Colts fans we worry about, free agency, not the draft. We're confident in what Chris Ballard could do in the draft. He's proven time and time again that he can bring in talent. Of course, you don't hit every draft pick because no one can do that. You would have to be Coltstradamus to hit on every single draft pick, right? But my point in saying that, again, the quarterback position is the part of this team that you cannot escape. Those are the guys that have to show up. Everything else is in place. Now, sure, you can look at the lack of a developed quarterback or a lack of a trustworthy quarterback and say, well, that speaks to Chris Ballard's inability to get one. And while that point isn't entirely unfair to you or by you, there is another side to the coin on that. And actually, before we even get into all of that, let me introduce the show before I forget. My name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Colts podcast. As always, ask anyone watching and enjoying the show, go ahead, shoot it a like. It's going to help us get out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible. Subscribe if you want to be a part of the journey. We're on our way to 4,000 subscribers over here on the channel. We want to be there by the start of next season. We have quite a bit of time, but we're also not all that close. That being said, we do have some subscribers pouring in. We appreciate that. So if it's your first time here and you're enjoying what you're seeing, or perhaps you've come back quite a few times and you've yet to hit the subscribe button, today might be the day. No pressure, though. I mean, not for anything. I'm going to be here doing this for a very, very long time. Audio listeners, leave a five-star review. Let the people know how much you're enjoying the show, but most importantly, be civil in the comments section. You don't know what the person on the other side of the keyboard is going through today. We want to further the discussion, not degrade it into like toxic name calling and things like that. You guys here, luckily for me, don't do that. I mean, the conversation that we have in the comment section here amongst the most sophisticated, the most intelligent, the fanciest, yes, some of the best conversation about the Colts on the internet happens in the comment section of this channel. So for that, I'm incredibly grateful. With all of that said, let's get back into the regularly scheduled program and back into what it is that we were talking about before I so rudely interrupted myself, right? So, the quarterback situation. You can look at the Colts not having a quarterback right now and say it's on Ballard. What I want to bring to you is another way to look at it and another way that I believe in, okay? I'm not just saying it to be a contrarian, although I will admit my tendencies do put me in that direction. Here's the other side. One, let's be very clear. Most of you guys, tell the truth. Most of you guys wanted the Colts to go get Anthony Richardson at number 4 in that draft in 2023, okay? At least in the case that they didn't trade up for number 1 overall to get CJ Stroud. And after seeing what sleepy Frank Reich and the Panthers had to give up to get up to that number 1 overall pick, I think many of us perhaps okay with the fact that they didn't. But at the same time, CJ Stroud, of course, pretty good quarterback, right? Okay, just want to get that out of the way. You guys all wanted him to get Anthony Richardson. He did it, and now all of a sudden you're saying, Ballard, this, that, the next. Like, you got to be accountable to the words that you speak online, particularly when you're so vehement in your opinions, okay? But that's really not even the most important one. Number 2, I'm the type of guy that is all about celebrating the players. As someone in myself who played football in high school and was really not all that good there. Like, I was in no danger of playing in college, let alone the NFL, both in terms of the natural God-given ability that I did not have to play the game of football, but then also the physical sacrifice required to actually get to that level. Like, I can appreciate just how special these dudes are. that play in the NFL in terms of the talent, the grind, the sacrifice, all of that stuff. Like, I have a ton of respect for those guys. So I'm trying to celebrate what it is that they do, okay? With that being said, you have a 53 man roster, 53 players on the team, okay? If you combine the parts of your coaching staff, the general manager, Jimmy Irsay himself, and his children, okay? The players have all of those things combined greatly outnumbered, yet somehow we've been convinced that we should blame the players last, that it should go from the top down. Make no mistake, the players are the ones that drive the success of the team. In fact, they wouldn't even disagree with that if you were to bring that point to them. When things are going well, they want the credit, okay? But do not let these players gaslight you, because it's what they do consistently, even if it's not their intention. Like, if I'm going to acknowledge that the players are the most important factor in a team's success, I promise this is coming back around to quarterback, okay? If I'm going to promise or to celebrate them in the fact that they're the most important factor of a team's success, which they are, and I believe that they are, if I am going to celebrate them when things go well, which I will, they don't then get to escape the responsibility on the back end of that, okay? When things aren't going well. So if you're Anthony Richardson, back to what we're talking about, right? If you're Anthony Richardson and you're not performing, and you have guys like Pat McAfee, who knows things that we don't. And you could get into the conversation about McAfee. And I guess if I'm to give my opinion real quick, I do find it somewhat disappointing that McAfee uses his platform the way he does. Like, there is the one side of things that, yes, he's the one voice that the Colts have in the mainstream media. Let him cook. But at the same time, he's the one voice that the Colts have in the mainstream media. So when everyone else in the media is against us and they're shitting on us, it's really not ideal to have a guy in Pat McAfee who has an opportunity to at least be a little bit of a diplomat about it, okay? He has the opportunity to try to lift this team up. I don't love seeing him do the other thing, but at the same time, he has people in the building that knows things that we don't. And essentially what he's saying is that the overall consensus from people in the building is that Anthony Richardson, up to this point in his career, has not put his best foot forward in ensuring that he has the best possible chance to succeed as an NFL quarterback. So if that's the case, I'm not going to look at the organization that has a very highly respected coach, that has put together a strong roster, that is able to be 500 essentially. Obviously, now with 17 games, you can't literally be 500, but one game over, one game under, despite the fact that you were basically the worst quarterback in the NFL. Now, you could argue he was, maybe not the worst, but he was certainly in the bottom three, okay? I'm not going to then turn on them when we know that the players are the most important things to the team's success, because ain't no one bringing up if these guys are negotiating their contract, they're not bringing up the coaching staff. They're not bringing up the GM, okay? They're talking about their hard work, their sacrifice, their production, and they should, okay? So this idea that the culture in the locker room and the production from these players is something that Steichen has to instill as the head coach, what exactly is it that you would expect him to do to bring Anthony Richardson further along? Like, if he runs the meetings, if he puts together the game plan, if he takes the time, if you're Anthony Richardson, to walk you through different situations, to clip out important pieces of film that he thinks are going to help you prepare for this week, and he's putting in 70, 80-hour weeks to make sure that you have everything you can possibly have at your disposal to succeed, and you and Anthony Richardson are not matching his effort. In what world should I blame Shane Steichen for that? In what world is that fair? Like, what the hell else do you expect him to do? Do you want him to put some sort of device around Anthony Richardson's ankle to kind of track him like an inmate? I mean, do you want him to have a camera at his house or monitor his screen time? If you're Anthony Richardson, you are a grown man. It is up to you to make sure that you are putting yourself in the best possible chance to succeed as a quarterback. And really the biggest reason I bring this up is to make sure that us as fans are looking in the right direction when we're upset with the direction of this team. Because again, these players consistently gaslight you into thinking it's outside of their control. It's very much in their control. There's not a single group on the entire team, the football team, that goes out and plays football. Nobody is in more control of how that turns out than the guys that are playing the football. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? We have seen players on this roster repeatedly point the finger somewhere else. Think about all the noise that was last season. We don't even have to get into all of it. Go ahead and look at some of the stuff that players were saying and some of the noise in the media last year, okay? I'm tired of the players on this team, the Indianapolis Colts, pointing the finger anywhere else than themselves. They say, okay, the organization not doing everything they can to be the best. Well, how about instead of pointing the finger at them, let me ask you, what are you doing to ensure that this organization is headed in the best direction possible? That's how our players need to be thinking. Like, sure, in the legal sense, the liability always goes to the top, right? To protect the workers. But to view the NFL and your team the same way you would view some sort of corporation in terms of accountability is like flawed for so many different reasons. Number one, really the less important point, the players on an NFL team are not your average employee. Like, these dudes make more money than most every business owner in the country, okay? That's just the fact of the matter. Like, when you're protecting an employee from liability at, let's say, your local McDonald's, okay? The financial burden that would come with the potential lawsuit or the consequences of something is completely unreasonable to expect the person behind the counter making minimum wage to deal with, okay? That's why, ultimately, in those situations, you look at the top and say, hey, this is your fault, not that person's fault, because there's a consequence that ultimately that person shouldn't have to deal with. The bigger issue, though, besides that point, is that in practice, if we're being intellectually honest, to blame the GM for the players not showing up makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Like, let me demonstrate that for you by continuing with the McDonald's analogy, okay? Because I think I'll be able to bring it home pretty well. Imagine you have a franchisee and he owns 7, 8 different McDonald's, okay? Each of those have 8, 9, 10 people on staff responsible for getting the orders in and getting the orders out, okay? Those people on staff at any given time, they're the boots on the ground doing the work. You pull up to the drive-thru. You say, hey, can I get a quarter pounder with cheese? Let me get the meal, a Hi-C fruit punch, an order of fries, the whole deal. Give me sweet and sour sauce on the side, okay? You pull up then to the window. You get the food. The fries are cold. Your quarter pounder's missing the cheese. They did not give you the sweet and sour sauce. You go back around to the window and let them know about it. You say, hey, not for anything. Can I get a hot order of fries? Can you put cheese on my burger? And the person at the drive-thru looks at you and says, you know what, man? I really, really would. And I really wish I could help you with that. I wish I could get the cheese on your burger. I wish I could give you a hot order of fries. But honestly, it's really not on me. Like, you have to take a look at the franchisee. What? You know what I'm saying? You would look at the person like they're completely out of their mind. You'd be like, dude, you're the one making the fries and the burgers. What do you mean it's on the franchisee? Okay, like, yes, you gave me a bag of McDonald's, okay? But this was a bad order of McDonald's. All the ingredients were in stock, right? Because if they were not in stock, if you didn't have French fries, you would have told me when I ordered. You would have let me know. So your management has provided you with all the inventory that you need to give me a good order of McDonald's, yet I have cold fries and a cheeseburger with no cheese. How is that not your fault as you're the one making the food? Right? Are you getting what I'm saying here, or are you just hungry now? Like, do you get my point? We need to keep that in mind when we talk about Richardson and his development. Richardson has been given every single resource possible. He has everything available to him, okay? He's got the money, he's got the coaches, he's got one of the best quarterbacks in football in Josh Allen ready to help him out over the course of the offseason. If things don't work out for him as the Colts quarterback, it is on him, plain and simple. It's not Chris Ballard's fault. It's not Shane Steichen's fault, okay? Don't look at Shane. He made it work with Gardner Minshew, who is nowhere near as talented as Anthony Richardson. And don't look at Ballard. He has the Colts in a position where they have talent on every single unit on the roster. It is time for Anthony Richardson to do his part. And if Anthony Richardson does his part, there is no reason at all that he can't be the guy to lead the Colts into a new generation and finally get rid of the pain that this city has been in since the retirement of Andrew Luck, okay? But it's on Richardson, period. If he does what it is that he should be doing, there's no reason to expect that he does not come out next season as a significantly better version of himself. And I don't want you guys to, I don't know, look at it and make it like it's someone's fault other than his, because it's not, okay? And that's just the truth of the matter. And I'm rooting for him, but at the same time, if we're going to be honest in the discussion, sometimes you have to have a little bit of tough love. But that right there is kind of just another tidbit of what it is there is to talk about of this quarterback battle in Indianapolis. My name is Justin. This right here was the Ride on the Bench Colts podcast. Like, subscribe if you have not yet. And most importantly, go Colts.